Welcome to the Cincy Postcast. It's your boy, the Chief. And before we get this episode going, I want to talk at you a little bit about our sponsor, Streetside Brewery. Streetside is located in historic Columbia, Tusculum. They're a fantastic local neighborhood brewery, and if you haven't been down there yet, what in the heck are you waiting for? Whether you're looking for someplace to watch the game, someplace to gather with friends, or just to have a quick one after work, Streetside is always a great choice. And at Streetside Brewery, they treat their employees with a respect and dignity that is then transferred to you, the customer. They've got an incredible assortment of beers on tap. My current favorite is the Black Cat's English Brown Ale. But when you go to Streetside, trust me, you're going to want to try them all. And if you actually decide to try them all, please do so responsibly. But also, let your bartender know that the Cincy Postcast sent you. You'll get $1 off all of your beers, and also let them know they made a good decision deciding to give us money for a sponsorship. See, that's what they call in the business a win-win. They do events throughout the year. Heck, they had us out for our first official live show earlier in the season, and their calendar is always being updated online. You can find them at 4003 Eastern Avenue, on tap around the city, and wherever you get your beer. Streetside Brewery. It's your coolest friend's favorite beer. Oh, and on today's episode of the Cincy Postcast, Kevin has made the mistake of leaving Grayson and I to do the show. But don't worry, unlike last time, we don't spend 30 minutes debating superhero movies at the top of the episode. FC Cincinnati 2 is getting a new name and new look, Commonwealth FC. We dive into it and review the leaked branding. It's all quiet on the U22 front, but is Quimi Ordonez potentially on the move? To Sweden of all places? We discuss. Around MLS, drama in Columbus as Cucho Hernandez continues his mysterious benching. Arch rival San Diego has a new GM, and we've got stadium renderings in Boston. We finished the episode up with a preview of this weekend's blood feud derby between FC Cincinnati and the New York Red Bulls. Spoiler alert, neither Grayson or I really expect attractive soccer to be played. Add it all up, and that'll be a postcast. You ready? I know I'm ready. Hit it, Jim. Oh, and joining me to talk about all that and more is just Grayson. Although I think most people can figure out that when I do the intro, it means Kevin isn't going to be around on this episode. And that's their sign to maybe find another podcast to listen to. Grayson, tell me how the storm treated you tonight.
Fine. Yeah. I went into... I met a friend at Igby's downtown. Not my favorite place. I call it Smugby's. But you know, they do a happy hour, and if you want to stick around downtown, there aren't a lot of great options. We quote unquote waited out the rain, which means that we saw the 30 minutes of rain and then kept drinking for 2 hours.
Continue drinking longer.
Yeah.
Because, you know, another storm could blow through at any second. You know how unpredictable this weather can be. You may well wait it out just to see.
One can hope another storm comes, and then you have an excuse to stay even longer.
Not to be the guy, the back in my day guy, but I don't recall when I was growing up that they were giving people off school and encouraging people to leave work early for thunderstorms. Has Cincinnati and has our generation, the younger generation, gone soft due to, you know, weather and whatnot here?
So soft feels like a value judgment.
Fair.
Maybe
that's what I'm doing.
I would say that they've gotten, they've changed the standard from when they close schools and when, you know, people are encouraged to leave work early, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, because I don't know if this was like you when you grew up. I went to a elementary school where it was, you could tell that one of the considerations when they built the thing was ensuring that it would survive the oncoming nuclear war with the commies back during the Cold War. And we had a very clear plan as to what to do for every natural disaster. If there was a tornado, we all lined up in the hallway and we lined up against the wall, and we covered our heads. If it was a fire, we calmly marched out of the school. And if it was an earthquake, we hid under our desks. We sheltered in place in my day. We didn't go home.
Well, they do different kinds of drills these days than we did. So
that's a good point.
I don't know how much that plays a factor into it.
Yeah, probably problematic that I'm saying that they're soft in their drill game these days.
Yeah. I wonder, because like when we were kids, like the tornado was scary, but the tornado wasn't going to come get you specifically.
The tornado didn't have an agenda against
Right.
you and your friends. It was
So I don't know. Like, part of it, I wonder if it's just like with the, I feel like the standard for a snow day is like a bit more lenient. And when I think about that, I also think about just like kind of crumbling infrastructure and choked off resources for buses and maintenance and other things when it comes to like building schools. I don't know how much that all comes into play. But like students are getting off for the eclipse.
Yeah.
And that feels like it's really because like either the parents or teachers want to like see the eclipse, maybe both.
Right. Because like we had an eclipse when I was growing up, and it was just they took us outside for 5 minutes. We looked up at the sun. None of us, I think we were just wearing sunglasses, which I'm told is a terrible idea. And then we went back into school, and they taught us a little about space. Like there wasn't a day off school for the eclipse. It was
right.
Get back in there and learn.
I think that I kind of had like a similar experience where we would just go outside for like 5 minutes and yeah. Now,
I don't know, my overwhelming however, okay.
I think it's good. I know you said soft, maybe that's a value judgment. I think it's good that we're finding more reasons to close schools because that's one less opportunity for the teachers to do critical race theory and gender indoctrination to our students.
Yeah. That can kill, as much as a tornado can.
Yeah.
I just think big weather, much like our former president, just really likes the poorly educated. And so they're trying to do whatever they can to shut our schools down. I do worry, though, like you said, soft may be a value judgment, but I grew up in a time period where I watched movies about high school kids that fought back against the Soviets when they started parachuting into their small town. I worry today that we wouldn't have the Wolverines, that what would happen would be they would call mom and dad to pick them up and take them away from the war.
Well, so when I was a kid, like the first and only time that my dad took me out of school to take me to opening day, the umpire died.
Oh, Jesus.
So I was like, oh, I can't leave school. like leaving school is bad.
Every time Grayson has ditched for opening day, a person has died. This is very much like one of those like things where you can have any wish you want in the world, but you have to press a button and somebody around the world dies. You just don't know who.
Yeah. So I see a lot of folks being like, oh, I'm taking my kid to opening day, or like we had people in our office, ask if we need anything else the rest of the day because they're thinking of, quote unquote, thinking about, leaving early while they're wearing red stuff. And like it feels like people maybe didn't have the same experience I did growing up.
No. Me and a really good friend of mine, we got Jug for, we took the train to go see the Baltimore Orioles opening day when I was living in D.C. And when you had to show the sick note for why you weren't at school the day before, we just gave ticket stubs over to the person in the office. And we were given detention, one for skipping and another one for being assholes enough to think that handing over ticket stubs was a funny idea. So yeah. I guess I can't really complain when anyone decides they want to skip school. I just remember I always got really jealous of the kids down in like Dry Ridge, Kentucky, in Owenton, Kentucky, because it seems like whenever we would get a dusting of snow, they would be off school for a month. The ticker would be running, and it was like, why don't they call when they have school? Because it seems like they never are in school.
Well, Kentucky doesn't have any snow plows in the state, right?
No, the snow plows are woke.
Yeah. I remember kids getting being out the week before spring break or whatever to go on vacation with their families. And I always thought that was wild because they give you a week.
Right.
But I guess,
But the problem is that if they give you the week,
go to Breckenridge or something.
Yeah, because nobody wants to fly on a Saturday or a Friday night. So you obviously want to fly when the airlines are a little cheaper. So that means you're flying on Wednesday. And if you're leaving on Wednesday, you may as well leave on Monday. And if you're going to leave on Monday, you may as well leave the weekend before and really get your money's worth for whatever trip you're going to be taking.
Yeah, and maybe if my parents had not been so wild about you have to be in school unless you were deathly ill, I would not have started skipping class as soon as I had my own car. It wouldn't have felt like such a bad fun thing I get to do now.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, look, I do that same negotiation with work where I'm oh, I'm going, I'm taking a week off. Well, but if I leave Friday night, I get to take advantage of 2 weekends. But if I'm leaving Friday, I might as well leave Thursday. I mean, I can work
just
on
take
the
Friday
plane.
off. Yeah.
Well, then I'll just come back Monday because if I come back late Sunday, I'm not going to be that productive Monday anyway.
This is a form of boy math, I want to say. Girl math was hot in the streets for a little bit. Boy math is trying to figure out the exact number of vacation days that you need to take in order to properly enjoy whatever trip you're on, and then just ultimately negotiating yourself into an additional week off by thinking, oh, no, this is clearly the better way to do things.
Or I'm going to go to, we're going to California. Especially this post-COVID has changed the boy math entirely.
Yes, no doubt.
Because it's I'm going to California. Well, that's 3 hours behind, so I can leave a couple days early, and I'll just work out of the Airbnb for a couple of days and end my day at 2 local time. So it's I get extra days vacation, and then you get to 12 or 1. You're well, I'll monitor my email on my phone.
Right. And then it comes to when you actually have to fly. It's the boy math is also, well, I mean, I'm paying for the Sky Club membership. It would be stupid not to go early and have a couple of drinks before the flight takes off.
I can work in the club.
Yeah, they've got Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
Password SkyMile. Who could guess this one? Oh, good Lord. So you survived the weather apocalypse. This is fun. I look forward to the weather apocalypse during the snow times. That's fun just because it's watching the B-roll footage of people trying to buy every store out of bread, milk, and eggs like they're attending a French toast convention. These are incredible because when they stay on the
what
air...
are people doing? Everyone's making eggs in purgatory?
Yeah. I mean, come on.
Is that what everybody does when there's bad weather?
Dude, scrambled eggs and toast that plays regardless of what the weather is. Let's be real here. Carbs and eggs.
Everyone's making shakshuka. All of a sudden, you need to have toast and eggs. What are you doing?
Well, it's obviously you're using the bread to make some breadcrumbs, and then there's the egg wash, and we're going to be hitting the deep fryer up a little bit. That's the only way to ride out a snowstorm, as far as
everyone's
I'm
making schnitzel.
Yes, clearly. German heritage, all of us. What I love about the weather when it's in the springtime,
Pavel Bucha would say, resin.
What I love about the weather in the springtime is then you can go on Twitter and you can search the mentions for the TV station and the weatherman and just watch people lose their mind in real time that they're interrupting whatever favorite show should be on instead of talking about seeing wind shear activity and telling people at mile marker 45 to take shelter in a county of Kentucky they've never been in before. And it is tremendous content watching people melt down because the FBI or fire country is being delayed for some reason. To which I always say, buy a Netflix subscription. This is your cue. If you don't already have one, that is the time to jump onto streaming services, is when all of your network television is being preempted. This is the sign from Mother Nature that it is time to stop watching network television. There is a whole wide world out there. not interrupted by commercials that you can enjoy. And speaking of the hollers of Kentucky and, places where tornadoes just tear through, we got some news this week.
Hunters of Kentucky. The Hunters of Kentucky.
We got some news this week that soccer may be finally coming to Kentucky. And I say that specifically to trigger anyone out there who may clip this and send this to a Lou City fan or was there a Racing Lexington or something like that?
There is like a Lexington something. There's a Lexington USL team.
There's a Lexington USL team. Whatever. The word
Lexington SC. Racing Louisville is the NWSL team.
Oh, NWSL team. Yeah. We like them, though. They're fine.
Yeah, they're fine.
News breaks today of a trademark filing purported to be a rebrand of FC Cincinnati 2. The rebrand would be Commonwealth United with a proposed new crest, proposed new branding, and it looks like this would be the proposal that we have heard rumored for, it feels like months now, of the FCC2 that plays their games in Northern Kentucky at NKU. Grayson, you've seen the rebrand, you've seen the crest. Your immediate reaction when you saw this today?
All right, so I'm gonna stick high level right now. I like the crest. Don't like the name.
Commonwealth United?
I do not like Commonwealth United because so the symbol is the bridge.
Yes.
It's not like the United Commonwealth team. It's like the imagery is like bridging Ohio and Kentucky.
Right.
So I would like something like River Cities United or like River Cities Union or just River Cities FC to recognize that you represent like that whole like Northern Kentucky, Southern Ohio sphere. It just that to me and I'm open to ideas. I haven't spent any time thinking about it. But
you could have gotten some mileage out of just calling it, we're actually part of Greater Cincinnati 2 FC.
What about just like the Commonwealth SC?
I don't hate that. That would be addressing a criticism of your good friend, my good friend, former FCC employee, DJ Schweitzer.
I was hoping we would address this tweet.
All right, so DJ, who I like, okay, like I want to put this out there. DJ and I have been friends for a number of years. DJ, we worked together very early on when the club was starting, when I was, we'll say, a little more involved in the supporters culture than I am currently. And DJ doesn't get his flowers often enough. DJ is very responsible for this club not going totally off the rails with some really stupid ideas in years 1 and 2, and was probably the first voice in the building for FC Cincinnati that actually said, hang on, you really need to work with the fans and listen to the fans a little bit more, and sort of translated soccer and business for people that needed that to be translated, and performed an invaluable service at the outset of this club. DJ, not shy with the takes, tweeted today, am I surprised that the guy that named his first pro soccer team in Ohio Football Club didn't fully grasp the meaning of United in a traditional soccer nomenclature when naming his second pro soccer team? No, I am not. This was interesting to me just because I felt like, look, I get the criticism, but also I feel like we're about 30 years past the whole we just name things United in this country when nothing about them was United. We have a very successful Atlanta United playing soccer in this MLS right now. We have historically DC United, one of the original MLS clubs that formed from the union of money and a desire to have professional soccer in the nation's capital. I feel like at this point, in a league that has a Real Salt Lake, we've just admitted we don't care about the traditional aspect of a lot of this, and we're just naming things because it sounds soccer-y. And I'm okay with that. I really am.
Yeah, I mean, United is just the team name. Like, people know what, like, I don't know. It strikes me as, like, I don't mean this as a personal attack, okay? But it strikes me as, like, somebody taking advantage of an opportunity to, like, work out a little bit of a grudge by going after whoever. I don't know who picked the names. Whoever picked the names. But, like,
look, you're never gonna get me mad about someone being petty. Like, we talked about
this in the last episode. How, like, one of the things that bothers me is when people are, like, acting like they're new here.
Yes,
and, like,
you should know that quote has stuck with me, like, a lot, and I've repeated it at least twice since you said it.
Yeah, and, like, criticizing American soccer teams for picking United for their team is, like, it's kind of acting like you're new here.
Right.
It's just a thing.
We're so far beyond that at this point.
Like, it's part of the joke. It is a little bit of the joke of what we just call the team the FC. Like, FC is that's the team. Like, you say Cincinnati Bengals, the Bengals. Yeah. FC Cincinnati, the FC.
The FC.
Because these words don't mean anything. This is American soccer. These words do not mean anything. There is no royal, like, the Salt Lake City was not like the team of the royal family of Utah. The Smiths and the Youngs.
Joseph Smith doesn't own the team.
The Smiths and the Youngs did not, like, come together and, like, establish this soccer team. And then while Utah was under, like, 40 to 50 years of fascism, it wasn't like the flagship team of, like, the Utah fascist state. Like,
right.
Like,
are we certain they didn't eat another team? That would be kind of on brand without there.
I think they just meant, like, this. Yeah, this is really a soccer team in Salt Lake.
Really,
we're putting a professional team in Salt Lake City.
Yeah, no, that was the problem.
Also, it's not even. Also, if we want to get real pedantic about it, they didn't call it Real Salt Lake City, did they? They called it Real Salt Lake. They don't play in the lake.
I get into this fight with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They don't play in the Bay. There is no such place as Tampa Bay. There is a Green Bay, Wisconsin. That's an actual place. Tampa is a city. Tampa Bay is a body of water. The team does not play in the body of water. I'm aware of this. I always thought they named Real Salt Lake was when they said we're going to put MLS in Salt Lake. The common response was, really?
Yeah.
Really? You're really going to do that? Yeah, we really are.
I mean, if you want to talk, if the real conversation around team names needs to start and probably end with why when you Google Chicago Fire, you have to go like 5 pages into Google before you come across a soccer team that is named Chicago Fire.
I mean, that's right up there with the whole reason why Frozen was released by Disney was to push down in the SEO Walt Disney Frozen Head.
Yeah.
Yeah. I believe that conspiracy, by the way. That's absolutely true.
I do want to talk conspiracy with the crest, but I want to make sure we've like gotten I want to make sure we transition to it well. So, do we have any other thoughts about like the team name, the rebrand? Oh, the World Soccer Talk people are acting like this is some type of big intrusion.
Okay, so that was where I want.
Yeah,
that was where I wanted. That's where I wanted to take this. So, I guess what this is sort of bigger into the meta, and this is part of the conversation where I wish Kevin wasn't being a bum in being here, because Kevin does tend to be sort of the soccer historian of the podcast a little bit. But part of what makes this interesting and what makes this news beyond simply, oh, that's neat, the 2 team for FC Cincinnati is going to have some new branding, it's some new merch you're going to be able to buy. We can look forward to a overly complicated explaino graphic that will identify why there are 3 cables on the bridge to represent the 3 pillars of our club: faith, family, friendship, live, laugh, love. I don't fucking know. Why this matters and why this sort of breaks through the news nationally is that this is yet another example of the idea that MLS wants to transition MLS Next Pro away from the branding and the moniker of boring two teams where it's very clear you are watching a reserve side for a larger MLS property, and to give these teams an identity of their own with the idea of developing a fan base of their own, which is perceived, I think, correctly by a lot of people that follow lower division soccer as a direct attack on the soccer ecosystem in this country, that MLS is pushing a competing model of soccer that more closely resembles minor league baseball or minor league hockey, where you may own Louisville Bats gear. That is Cincinnati Reds 2, for lack of better phrasing, but they aren't marketed that way. They are marketed to the city as a pro team that you can go out, you can support, and you can cheer on without it being constantly put in your face that you're watching an inferior product. And you know what? I think this is smart by MLS. I think this is a smart move by Cincinnati. I think it's a smart move by MLS. The long-term viability of a lot of these teams, drawing fans, drawing people, is going to depend on people having some sort of weird brand loyalty, even knowing that it's a minor league club. This is a proven way to sell sports in the United States. And it feels like if they do this well, that this is a problem for what USL is trying to build. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's certainly an alternative model. And it would be silly to act like it's not a competitor in the grand scheme with, with the USL tiers or with whatever other minor league soccer might exist. But I don't think there's anything like illegitimate about MLS funding a lower division league and then trying to give those lower division teams a local connection to whatever community they're in, or trying to have them have a little bit more of an existence than just a development team that plays games over at Mercy Health or whatever. Right. Because Northern Kentucky is its own community. Yes. And so there are people who, maybe would be more inclined to go to the FC, the River City Commonwealth team games in Northern Kentucky because, they don't want to cross the river, or they live in Fort Thomas and it's just very easy for them, or it's cheaper. It's a easier family excursion with your kids because you all get in free, right? Or, maybe not always free, but certainly always cheaper. And it's just a more budget friendly night out.
And it's smart. It's smart for the league too, because with you talks about the budget friendly night out, you are attempting to make new consumers for soccer. And if you can get families, this was the dream of MLS 1.0, was this idea that we're going to have a generation of soccer moms and kids showing up at MLS games, and it's going to be this family-friendly environment with stadiums in the suburbs surrounded by blacktop parking that were easy for people to get to and park and go to. This is sort of that dream realized a little bit, that this is, if you don't want to haul a family of four with a bunch of little kids down to TQL Stadium and pay, $40-50 a ticket, I've got friends that have little kids, and they sometimes are, we're lucky if our kids make it through the first half of a game. And they still go because they have season tickets, they're FC fans. But this is another alternative for, I want to, go watch soccer. I want to go support generally FC Cincinnati. But, I live on the other side of the river, or I know my kids aren't going to make it through a full game, so I'm not going to spend the full ticket price. But that kid then becomes, goes to soccer games, gets used to soccer, gets used to professional soccer. And I keep going back to this idea that this is the model for American sports.
T. Grace just scored on Crew.
Oh, we're going to get to that in segment 2. Oh,
Yeah.
boy.
We'll get to it. But
All right.
Anyway, sorry, keep going.
No, I was just going to say, this is the model for sports in America. This is what baseball did successfully. They vertically integrated the entire sport underneath Major League Baseball. Hockey did this successfully. The NBA is trying to do this with the G League. They're trying to get away from a certain extent from being so dependent on the college model. It feels like a natural evolution in soccer. I think where they're running into it is that there's just a vocal presence of soccer fans for whom this is an affront. And much like with the Open Cup and with a lot of other stuff, it's just like they punch above their weight in terms of noise they create online.
Yeah, the whole thing where like it might be some kind of affront. I have no patience for that because this is competition, right? Yes. This is competition, and it's totally legitimate for MLS to put lower division teams in wherever it wants. Frankly, if they wanted to put one right in Louisville, like that's their right, and that's how you compete. You compete for fans and dollars. Yeah.
This is Alexi Lawless. This is Alexi Lawless's point. And I mean, think about what you will at him. His point consistently about pro rel is that, look, if you think pro rel is the way forward in this country, start a league and do it and see if you win out. Like, there's nothing stopping you from doing it and applying for D1 sanctioning at some point. Yep. The fact that nobody does it probably is a good indication that there's not money involved in doing it, that it's not going to win out.
And I've made this point before, but the people who want pro rel and kind of like, I think, frankly, brainlessly say that this is like, well, this is the American value of like free competition. Well, no, you actually don't want free competition. You want there to be like a law that there's no closed system.
This. Yeah.
You want to enforce it. The way you do it by free competition is people is convince investors. And I'm not saying like this is good or bad. I'm just saying like this is you convince investors to set up a league or set up teams that affiliate and set up either a closed system or an open system and see what works, for fan dollars. And there's nothing wrong with MLS competing or trying to figure out ways that the two teams can compete for consumer demand.
Right.
And I thought it was insane also that, like, I think Kartik, the World Soccer Talk guy, I think he's a World Soccer Talk, right?
He's a World Soccer Talk guy. He's also funny because he keeps talking about how the USL has a plan for pro rel. It just they're stringing you along, man. They're never going to do it. They dangle that carrot out every couple years to keep the hardos invested.
And one, I guess. So I don't want to move to his point yet. The other one was, so you may say that it's like unfair for the two teams to compete with USL because the two teams are propped up by MLS teams. But alternatively, that might be good.
Yeah.
Like it's a more stable minor league that is not subject to the same cost pressures as other teams are. So like if it takes a second to tap into the market and build your fan base, you're not sunk.
No.
And
because there's a backer.
Is there any argument that like more soccer teams is bad for growth of the game?
Isn't that the argument they always make, is that like our development is held back in this country because we don't have enough soccer teams developing talent?
Yeah, like you might find it personally distasteful that MLS continues to further entrench itself into American professional soccer and expand and have more control over player development and more control over the soccer market, broadly. Frankly, I don't love that MLS, I understand what MLS is motivated by. I don't always love the results of what decisions MLS makes by its kind of transparent motivations. Okay. The Open Cup situation is kind of example A of all of that. But, on net, MLS has been a positive for the growth of soccer in the U.S.
No, and you're being disingenuous if you suggest otherwise.
Yeah, you're being like extremely silly if you suggest otherwise, because you require so many assumptions on the counterfactual that were not borne out by any actual data from the history of soccer in the United States.
So let's get to Cartrick's point that you were going to talk about, and then I want to talk more about the symbolism involved in this crest. So let's get to Cartrick's point, and then we'll move on to some crest analysis here. So Kartik, what do you want to say about him? What do you want to say about his point?
Kartik,
he's blocked me. I don't follow him anymore.
So I think his point, or the words he used, was that it was like particularly audacious for FC Cincinnati to like call it Commonwealth United or whatever, given that there's two USL teams in Kentucky. And I think there's two responses to it. One is kind of very obvious. One is that, there's been FC Cincinnati 2 playing in Kentucky for a couple of years now.
Yes.
But the other point is like, you're kind of telling on yourself if you think that there being something in Louisville and Lexington now means that like all of Kentucky is represented. Like Northern Kentucky is an entirely different thing from Lexington and Louisville.
Yes.
And
basically a different state, if we're being honest.
Yeah, I mean, like I think people who aren't from this area or Ohio or Kentucky or, probably I assume like Illinois, Indiana, other states in the region that I don't know as well. Like people don't realize that like these are like these states are big and they contain like very different places from each other.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Like I was once in Florida and I was trying to fly Frontier back and I ended up being like
I've identified problem one with this story.
I ended up being like 3 or 4 days late getting back, like no joke. And I think on like day 3, the woman working the desk told me that she could get me back to Cleveland. And I was like, you might as well have said you could get me back to Chicago.
Right.
Like
it probably would be easier. It would probably be easier to get back from Chicago.
And I was like, do you know how far Cleveland and Cincinnati are from each other? And I was nice about it because I'm always nice to these folks because it's not their fault.
No.
But she said she didn't. And I said, well, it's about as far from Cincinnati as Chicago is. So they ended up, getting me back on a different airline. But it's just like people just don't realize like how diverse these places are.
No, I think of another
like you're from Newport. My cousin is from Letcher County. You guys probably have a lot in common.
I think of another commonwealth in these circumstances that I lived in once, and that's the Commonwealth of Virginia. And boy, let me tell you, there is not a lot of similarity between Northern Virginia and then some place like Winchester, Virginia, and then another place like Newport News, Virginia.
Yeah.
Those places may as well be 3 different countries, much less be part of the same Commonwealth of Virginia. With the idea of Commonwealth, my take is that I think that there are a lot of people that looked at this name and looked at this crest in the lower divisions of soccer and were like, damn it, that's pretty good. I think that Lexington, if they were honest, they would say we should have gone with Commonwealth United or Commonwealth SC.
You should have.
That's what I made this point about the Crew way back in the day, that the original sin, the original fuck up of the Columbus Crew was not just making themselves Ohio SC or Ohio Soccer Club or the Ohio Crew, using the colors of, red and gray, and just leaning full in to being the entire team for the state of Ohio. I think they limited their market cap by, especially initially when there weren't a lot of MLS teams, by being the Columbus team as opposed to the Ohio State team, given how well the branding works for the other team that uses Ohio State. Anyway, on the subject of this crest, you have some conspiracy theories you want to drop on us about this?
Yeah. I have 2. Okay.
Okay, hit me.
So, the bridge obviously takes up most of the crest.
Yes.
Okay.
It's the FC of this crest.
Yeah. And but there's two other things going on here. One is above the bridge, there's like this pyramid thing with a concave bottom.
Yeah, it's a delta. It looks a little like the Starfleet symbol. Maybe. Yeah.
Yep. And then under the arch of the bridge, there is these two crossed swords.
Which I believe are the same swords that Gary holds in the FC Cincinnati crest, just based on observation right here.
Could be.
They look very similar in terms of styling.
If you look at the Delta symbol, the Starfleet symbol, it resembles pretty strongly the Eye of Providence used by Masonic masters. And I have a tweet out about it that got very little engagement, frankly.
It's unfortunate, really.
But there, you may have heard of somebody who's a Masonic master. Carl Lindner Jr. Was a Masonic master. His Masonic career highlights, according to, and this may surprise you.
Where did you find this?
I found it in like a Masonic yearbook or something, like a book of just it's like a PDF.
I thought they kept some random secret.
It is hard to find.
Okay.
It is hard to find.
I'm a Catholic. I'm not allowed to be part of the Freemasons, unfortunately.
Lindner completed the degree of the Scottish Rite in 1944. And
are you sure that's not his old man?
Junior. It's Junior.
No, Junior was his old man that owned the Reds.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about.
Okay, I thought you were talking about.
Yeah, no, I'm not talking about the third. I don't know if the third is an active Mason. I'm going to get to the third.
Okay.
But yeah, he was the Junior was a Master Mason. He was awarded the Georgius Medal, also the Von Rensselaer Medal, which apparently he's only one of 14 people at the time who ever had gotten that medal. It looks like it was like a local Masonic medal. As Chief alluded, it's very hard to find specific details about the Masons. But I did find a business courier article. Oh, and by the way, the two swords clashed.
Yes.
You can find a lot of it's not a lot, but there's different ways the swords are crossed. But the way that the swords are crossed with the points up resembles the rod topper for the Masonic Master of Ceremonies. But there was a book that came out in the early 2000s about the Masons, and there's a Business Courier article from early 2000s about it. What they wrote in the Business Courier was, among today's most recognizable Scottish Rite members are the Lindner brothers, Carl, Robert, and Richard. Now, this is the generation above the third, okay?
Right.
Who together ran their father's company, United Dairy Farmers, before Carl ventured into the financial industry in the 1960s. In 1988, Carl Lindner was awarded one of Masonry's highest honors, the Van Rensselaer Gold Medal. And, there's more, but the point is
that he knows where the map is on the back of the
point is
Declaration of
that
Independence.
if there's folks who would be familiar with Masonic symbols, it's, well, maybe not the third, but certainly Carl Lindner Jr. would have been familiar.
The third definitely gives off Freemason vibes. I don't know what a Freemason vibe is, but it feels right to say that.
Yeah. So the thing is, and I'm going to say something, and it's going to sound like I'm making implications, and I'm really, really not. Okay.
Be aware, I don't edit the podcast as much as Kevin does, so this is making it.
So Carl Lindner, Junior was kind of famous for being a very, very active political influencer. He was a big donor to Bush, and then he was a big donor to Clinton. And he was just kind of been involved in the machinations very actively. I know less about the third. I'm not sure it was a complete accident that Donald Trump showed up at his son's wedding. But I also think that I think there's a perception when you just see Carl that he's kind of like a all shucks kind of guy. And I don't know if that's true. And, the fact that he was kind of invited to start an MLS team shows, he probably is pretty connected with some pretty powerful masters of the universe. I mean, something that comes to mind, and again, I'm going to say this, but I'm not saying there's any connection at all. But something that comes to mind is remember Sacramento, how they were going to get to MLS?
Yeah.
The thing that
didn't turn out so well.
The thing that killed their bid was that the guy on the Epstein flight logs dropped out of their ownership group. That's what killed their bid.
God, so we've gone from Freemasons to Jeffrey Epstein rumors. This is great. This is going to set some download numbers right. This is going to do numbies right here.
Look, I just think it's funny how there's a bridge and there's two things that to my immediate eye looked like Freemason symbols. I'm not making any assumptions or accusations.
So are you going to be
I think it's cool. I think the swords are cool.
Yeah. Are you going to be the one or am I going to be the one that tags Pablo Maurer on this to say, at least it's not Christian this time?
I'll tag Pablo on it.
All right. Good. One of us has to. This is all really funny, too, because my first reaction when I saw this is, it's a compass point pointing north directly to the end for northern Kentucky. But I think the Freemason thing is way better.
The Eye of Providence for the Masonic Master is like a compass.
This is true, actually. I don't know. Freemasonry, I always think of the stone cutters.
It's good. I want to be clear. We're pro.
No, we are pro. This is anything that we have said that's negative about Freemasonry is parody.
You don't.
The fact
I want to be clear.
Like,
we are pro. I wasn't judging it. I was just saying I appreciate how much they've done for us.
I just remember the Stonecutters episode of The Simpsons. That's really my full knowledge of what Freemasonry is all about, to be honest.
I remember the Da Vinci Code and reading about the back of dollar bills.
Yeah,
whoa.
National Treasure. Learned a lot about Freemasonry from National Treasure. See, the Knights of Columbus don't come up in these situations often, unfortunately, so I don't get to talk about the Catholic response to the Freemasons. On the whole, we
did that last episode.
This is true. Commonwealth United. I'll buy a shirt. Crest looks okay to me. Color scheme is a little odd. I would have expected orange and blue. But I'm excited for our friends down in Northern Kentucky because I've been told that the FCC2 games are a lot of fun. I think having some branding will be interesting. Do you think there will be Commonwealth United supporters groups, or will they be offshoots of the current FCC supporters groups? I think it'll be interesting to see if there's an actual culture that develops around this team. I think that would be fun to watch.
I think it would be fun to watch. I'm not going to...
I will not participate.
I didn't participate in making this team's culture.
Many people suggest that being part of a supporters group is a lot like joining the Freemasons. I myself am a master SGer, 33rd tier, 44th tier.
I went to a holiday party fundraiser at the Masonic Lodge one time. That place is a trip. Yeah, the one downtown on 5th Street.
The one that doesn't get talked about enough is I always wanted to be a Shriner when I grew up, just because I wanted to drive little cars around in the parades.
I read a Carl Hiaasen book years ago that starts off with a Shriner getting murdered, and there's a funny bit about how Shriners then converge on this town in Florida to try to help solve. Yeah, it's just it's these guys in fezzes are bopping around town trying to solve this murder because one of their guys got killed. It's very.
This would be
Carl Hiaasen's he's a funny writer. I like his.
This could be a longer pod. This could be a longer podcast episode at some point, but the idea of American society's, I don't want to say decline, but the change of American society measured by declining membership in organizations like the Shriners, the Freemasons, the Eagles, the Elks, and just people losing those. Because I don't know, do you know anyone that is a member of any of these organizations at all? Like there's a group in St. Bernard called the Idle Hour that is kind of like that I know a few members of. But shit, my grandfather used to go to the Eagles Lodge all the time when I was younger and play cards with all his buddies up there, and I'm sure he get shit faced. But I don't know anyone that's a member of any of these groups anymore.
I know someone who's like in the Germania Society.
Yeah.
But I know that like a lot of like the downtown clubs are like dying for like younger people to join them.
Why is that? Why doesn't our generation do that? Because
we've killed, like, capitalism has killed community connection.
I mean, this isn't Applebee's though. You can't say millennials.
It's a nuclear family.
I mean, there was plenty of nuclear families that still got lived down and played poker at the lodge. That was a thing.
I mean, so it's a tough situation, and we can't really get too deep into it but like it's our
podcast. We can talk about whatever the fuck we want,
right? But there's like a give and take.
Kevin's not here to stop us.
So there's a give and take on these like civic or community groups, because on the one hand, like it's good to have like a way for people to like come together.
The third place theory.
Yeah. But on the other hand, like too much community identity or like too much participation in these like civic groups has also, traditionally been associated with like fascism and segregation and stuff over the years. And it's just like, that's more of like a how, I think, than a what.
Right.
But I do think that like community connection or community identity or like local character is important, because like people get too disconnected from each other.
Yes.
And it's like a fun little thing to like go to like a parade and there's like these dudes in these like little fezzes and like little cars. Like there's a lot of like funny things about Cincinnati and like the people that are really into Bachfest.
Right.
I'm not really into Bachfest. I don't really go to the Bachfest stuff, but it makes me like a little happy, like walking home and seeing the people like dressed up who are like really into it, or like the fish fries around town.
Right.
Like it's not really, honestly, it's like not really my thing, but I still endeavor to like go to one a year.
Yeah, you go to one and then you go to the Sacred Heart ravioli dinner. And then like, that's like, you're getting your culture.
It's neat to see the people who are like really into it, right? And be like, yeah, like there is a community here.
I'm
not a part of it, but there is a community here.
We can do a longer episode about this when Kevin's around, but I do think that's part of the reason why the SGs and FC Cincinnati took off, was that they tapped into a resource of a lot of people that were of our generation that were looking for that, and that they wouldn't go join, the local Masonic temple or the Shriners or anything like that. And so
Marshall talked about this with
finding your place
with the Norden and what he saw, and I think it's cool. Like I've seen some of the pictures of some of the events that they've done up there, and like I think it's great. And the same with the stuff that Pride has done and other groups have done, but I think he's right that like there was certainly room for a group that was geared around their kind of situation.
Yeah. Up in Mason, ironically.
Yeah, or Westchester?
They're all the same.
Yeah, it's true.
All right. Well, that's FCC2, Commonwealth United.
Let's do quick hits on the rest of this stuff.
Yeah, because there's a lot of stuff we were going to get to, but it's all. I mean, I was looking to fill time on this anyway because it's been not a newsy week. Listening to Extra Time, Matt Doyle, I believe, brings up on Extra Time the idea that striker depth may be on the way this window. I think that's the Kelsey rumor we've already talked about. Anything about this, the fact that national media is talking about it, makes you believe that this is imminent? Or is this just sort of, the human centipede of news that is MLS, where Tom Bogart shits out a rumor, and then Matt Doyle says, well, I'm hearing people talking about this, and then we're using it and we're bolstering our own confirmation on the same like two sources over and over again?
I think it's the latter.
Yeah.
I think it's solid enough that there has been contact. I haven't seen anything, and that includes listening to Matt Doyle mention it an extra time. I haven't seen anything to believe that like there's anything different going on with it than there was like last week.
No. There's no new reporting on it that I've seen.
We got 3 weeks in the window.
Yeah, there's 3 weeks in the window.
This one may go late.
The other thing, too, is I have not seen any new names, which leads me to believe that it might be this guy or bust. I think that, was it Natsamentes?
Mateus Nascimento.
Nascimento. I think that we've gone well beyond that for all the reasons we said that was unlikely to begin with. So then what do you make of this then? So this sort of naturally transitions into this point. And that's that they're circulating on social media today, as we record, information that suggests that Quimi Ordonez may be over in Sweden on a midweek ahead of a home game. Not a lot of reasons for someone like Quimi to be over in Sweden in the middle of the season, other than perhaps being ahead of a move to a team in Sweden. Now, it's important to note their window closed over there, I believe, in March, if I'm not mistaken. So
somebody in the Discord said March 31st.
March 31st.
I refuse to Google when the Sweden window ends.
Well, I'm not
I'm just not going to do it. I don't care enough about the Swedish league to learn more information about it. So I'm going to report based on sources that their window closed March 31st.
Sources in the Discord. It appears that the midseason window, 31st of March, January 8th to 31st March. Sorry, they write their dates backwards in Europe. However, I say this, and that's that this is the Swedish league. It isn't exactly the top of mind for Fabrizio and the other newsbreakers around world soccer, and it would not surprise me if paperwork went through on the 31st for something, and we just hadn't heard about it, and it wasn't announced until, today, tomorrow, whenever you're listening to this. Or it could be nothing. It could be he had a valuable opportunity to do a, foreign exchange student program for 2 or 3 days. The only thing that caught my eye about this is that he is, what would you have him as, our third on our depth chart of strikers, or fourth on our depth chart of strikers right now?
I think fifth or sixth.
Fifth or sixth. Either way, he is on the depth chart of strikers for this team, on a team that is, we'll say, striker challenged after you get beyond Aaron Bupenza, and your mileage may vary, maybe Corey Baird. What do you think? Is Quimi being loaned somewhere, or is Quimi being sold somewhere?
I would say loaned, if anything. It's possible it was done before the 31st. I mean, he wasn't in the team at all.
Right.
Last weekend. I would be surprised if you get. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if it was a sale either. Sweden might very well be a good level for him. Right. He was dominant at Next Pro, and not very useful.
No.
At MLS level. So, maybe Sweden would be like a nice in between stage.
Yeah,
for him.
I think you and I reached the same conclusion at about the same time with Quimi Ordonez, that maybe college needed to be in his future, or maybe a different league needed to be in his future, because he's got a lot of similarity to Marco Angulo, and I know that that's not intuitive to think, but he needs minutes. If he is going to get better, he needs to play minutes someplace better than MLS Next Pro.
I don't think he's got any development that's going to happen for him in Next Pro. So here's the thing. So I feel like if it was a loan situation, you probably could have found a loan for him in USL. So if he is going to Sweden, maybe this is genuinely, best of luck
in your future endeavors.
Yeah.
Well, watch this space. I don't know. So the last part that I want to talk about is the Generation Adidas Cup is ongoing. There have been some interesting results if you look at this tournament with Atlanta United's reserves. I think we mentioned this in the podcast over the weekend. Atlanta United's reserve beating Manchester United's reserves. The Young Garys beating, I believe, Philly Union's reserve under 15, under 17 team. Do we care about this? Does this matter at all? Like I struggle with this idea of, we're talking about prospects that haven't hit puberty yet. And until you get a growth spurt in life, I just don't know that anyone knows what the hell you're going to be in terms of a pro athlete.
So I think it's nice to win anything. Like anytime the organization wins anything, go FC.
Yeah. But the lads.
But I don't feel any pressure to like do well at things like the Generation Adidas Cup. Or frankly, even in MLS Next Pro, like I would love for the Commonwealth to win all their games, but they could lose all their games. And if we develop like a starter every couple of years, I'll be pretty happy with how the team is going.
Right.
The one thing I did find interesting about the Generation Adidas Cup is there was a dual national from Hoffenheim's academy that was playing with our team. And
yes, I did notice that.
That's
that
neat.
Makes me happy.
That's neat. Sign him up. Let's go. And then the other one was, I forget who it was, but one of the people that covers like these youth tournaments, which I think is a little weird, but whatever. One of the people that covers these youth tournaments mentioned that there was like a high school player playing with our team who was like particularly physically imposing. And I think that was funny too.
Right.
I don't think the Hoffenheim thing was funny so much as it was like cool and like sign him. But
I mean, does this work?
Having getting like some big bruiser from like a high school team.
Yeah.
To, like,
what is it? I was just wondering, does this work like CYO soccer where the parents have to show the kid's birth certificate to prove he's eligible to play at this age? It's like, that kid looks way too old to be out there with my son. I'm going to need to see some documentation that he's able to do that. And I don't say that because I was forced and my parents were forced to do that frequently when I was growing up. It's a unique experience if you were larger in any physical stature than the competition around you with your age group that you have to go through. The idea that a Generation Adidas player would need to prove with his long-form birth certificate his age and eligibility would make me very, very happy with this. So that's where we're at with the FC. There was some chatter as well that we've had a very easy schedule so far, which I don't know about you. I don't care. Like, you play the teams in front of you. And I know teams are looking at us and thinking, oh, we're getting Cincinnati at a good time too before they gel, and we're still doing well on stuff. The article came out about where our metrics are this year. We're pretty dead middle of the pack in all of our MLS metrics, between 10th and 15th, 16th, and just about everything from possession, shots, XG per shots, attack speed. I don't know. Do you care about these kind of like advanced numbers? Because they seem really made up to me a lot of the time.
They're made up.
And it's just like two people could look at the same thing and decide that the attack tilt is a completely different number.
There's a peer review crisis in this country. It's well documented.
Yes.
What is being done for like to verify like what G+ is? Like, American Soccer Analysis said that the three best teams in the East were like Charlotte, DC, and New York Red Bulls. And like we did play two of those teams, but also
I've got a great idea.
How many, like, we heard all year that like, we weren't that good under like the G+ stat or whatever.
All right, Grayson, hear me out on this before you continue.
Yeah.
The Post should become America's first peer-reviewed soccer journal.
Sure.
And if you want to get tenure, you've got to get published in the Post. We can make or break some academic careers here.
Yeah, that it maybe would at least ensure that at least a couple of people read our articles.
Right. Or that Kevin will link them when we talk about them in episodes. Kevin.
Yeah, I've had multiple people reach out to me because we said we would put those articles in the show notes, and
we just didn't do it. Hey, if you're looking for anything,
let's put them in this one.
No, we should add another Patreon tier and put them behind that.
Ooh, yeah. I don't have the Patreon. I don't have the Patreon
for the $3 Patreon tier. You want to read Grayson's original writing?
I'm gonna put them on the in the secret channel for Patreons only on the Discord.
See, but that's violating our promise that there will be no additional content on the secret channel.
We said no promise of additional content.
Oh, I still feel dirty about it. We're going to post them in the secret channel. I may add them to the show notes as well. So if you were disappointed to not read the writings of FC Simp C in the last episode, we will fix that for you. Grayson, is there anything else we need to talk about the FC this week? It's been kind of a quiet week. It's nice that we don't have a midweek match. I'm still getting back into the flow of this whole thing where we're only playing one game a week. Anything else that we need to talk about with this team this week?
No.
I don't think so either. All right. Well, then, we'll do a little business at the ad break. Stick around. In segment 2, we're going to do a quick whip around of a couple MLS stories, including drama in Columbus. Stay tuned.
This episode is also brought to you by Cincy Shirts. Look, you know Cincy Shirts. You love Cincy Shirts. They've been with FCC from the beginning, and we here at the Postcast, we're just huge fans of their work. They were very early sponsors of the Postcast here, and we have always enjoyed their work. If you head on over to cincyshirts.com, that's Cincy with a Y, shirts.com, and check out using the promo code ThePostCincy, all one word, all caps, you will get 10% off your order, and you let them know that we sent you. Like, they have MLS and MLSPA licensed FCC gear available online and at their 2 retail locations in Hyde Park and Fort Mitchell. If they don't have your size on the shelf, they can print you one on the spot. That is a fantastic feature and something that I have used as well. So again, special thank you to Cincy Shirts. Head on over to their website or check the link down below in the description for the promo code ThePostCincy for 10% off your next order. And a huge thank you to Cincy Shirts.
And we're back. Grayson, I don't know if you saw this. I don't know if this came across your desk. I don't know how it couldn't have. Apparently there's a problem in our good friends to the north, the Columbus Crew, with one Cucho Hernandez, who was not available this past weekend for the Crew's matchup. I don't know who they played this past weekend. I think they lost, whoever it was.
They tied Nashville 2-2.
It was a tie that felt like a loss, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So tie to Nashville. Did not feature Cucho Hernandez. Columbus manager Wilfred Nancy said that he was being held back from selection due to a managerial decision.
Team policy is what he said.
Team policy violation.
He just said team policy.
Team policy. Then we fast forward to Tuesday.
It's a team policy not to play players who are not on our team.
Right. Fast forward to Tuesday, a massive matchup for the Columbus Crew versus Tigres, one of the premier clubs in North America.
Happening right now.
Happening as we record. What's the score currently? I don't have it up right now.
It's 1-1 at halftime.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah.
Happening right now. Cucho Hernandez also not available in this match. Also, due to team policy, according to Wilfred Nancy, saying that he will address it at a future date. Grayson, what the hell's going on with Cucho Hernandez in Columbus? Because it feels like if you're going to go 2 matches without your best player, and I would bet the betting favorite to win MLS MVP, or one of the betting favorites to win MLS MVP this year, it feels like just saying team policy, next question, that might work for Bill Belichick in the NFL. That's not going to work for a manager in MLS, or it shouldn't work for a manager in MLS.
Yeah, so I think there's a few things going on for sure. And there's like 3 different tweets that I want to discuss, but I think they bookend kind of differently.
Let's do it. Because I think I've seen a couple of the ones you're about to talk about. So
the first is coming from former Crew goalkeeper Eloy Room.
Okay, this is not one of the ones I saw.
It's from just about an hour ago at the time of recording. He quote tweeted Tom Bogert's tweet from a couple hours ago about Cucho's absence, and Eloy wrote, "Looks familiar, ... winky emoji."
I'm seeing this tweet right now, and what I'm really enjoying is that the first response underneath it is Todd Carnes, who has photoshopped Cucho with the FC Cincinnati jersey.
Yeah, which I'm enjoying the people photoshopping Cucho into FC Cincinnati. But like, I just think I love this former player tweet joining in on the tweet drama.
Yes.
A player who was pushed out of the team by I don't want to say by Nancy, but certainly on Nancy's watch. Like, Nancy was the coach.
Yes.
When Schulte took over, like, Room was the starting goalkeeper when Nancy took over. Schulte was the starting goalkeeper by the end of the season.
And then, if my memory serves, there was a mutual contract termination with Eloy Room.
I think there was.
I think at the middle of last year, if I remember correctly. It was in the summertime.
Yeah, I do think that Schulte like took over mid-year, like kind of permanently. And there may have been a period of time where he was like kind of mysteriously out of the team. So I like that. Moving on to the second tweet about it. This is from Patrick Murphy. He is a Columbus Crew beat writer for I guess I thought he was a Columbus Crew beat writer, but this says he's an Ohio State beat writer for Bucknuts.
I mean, Bucknuts is legit. Like, that's
I know. I agree.
Yeah.
I think he at least used to be a Columbus Crew beat writer. I think it's why I'm familiar with his name. He says, if Cucho doesn't play again tonight, some serious questions need to be asked and some actual answers need to come from #Crew96. Team policy isn't enough for a multi-game suspension for one of MLS's best players. Wilfred Nancy picks the lineup, but fans deserve an explanation. And I got to say, I agree with him.
I do too.
I think he's right. I think that people need to really ask a lot of questions of Columbus Crew.
I mean,
and about why they exclude certain people from their locker rooms and team facilities.
Yeah, like,
people need to ask a lot of questions about Columbus Crew about why they do that.
But I mean, like, no joke though. Can you imagine, like, who's the equivalent of Cucho Hernandez in? You're talking about if in the NFL, or like in the NFL, if all of a sudden it's 2 games in a row, Joe Burrow doesn't play, and the reason is team policy. Like, there would be pitchforks and torches outside Paul Brown Stadium. Or like, I was going to say Shohei Ohtani, but if he misses 2 games, we're all going to think that he got by the Yakuza for owing money to somebody. Or he was told by the MLB commissioner to go play basketball for a few years till things cool off. But no, like, this is an actual star player, one of the brightest stars in the league for the reigning MLS Cup champions, and there's not more interest or a demand for answers as to what's going on. I mean, and this is the problem when so much of MLS media is state-run media. You think the Extra Time crew is going to be asking tough questions about why Cucho Hernandez isn't playing, or trying to get to the bottom of the Cucho Hernandez story as to what's going on here? I mean, it's absurd that it's being allowed to go on like this, and Wilfred Nancy is just able to say, team policy. Well, what fucking policy, Will?
I find it interesting how fan-oriented it's okay for Columbus Crew beat writers to be, when I feel like that's not true for every team.
No.
But
no.
But moving on to one more thing.
Right.
One more tweet.
This would be Jeff Birding's fault if Lucho Acosta wasn't playing right now. Somehow, it would be Jeff Birding's fault if there were 2 games where Lucho was being held out.
Could you imagine? So, no, there's no, as far as I'm aware, there are no transfer windows open for Cucho to go to. Okay. MLS, you're right. But what would it take to trade for Cucho Hernandez in the league?
Depends on how badly you want to be rid of him.
I would hold him hostage. But so one more tweet, and then we can, I think, probably say our piece on this thing, whatever needs to be said on it.
Right, which is tough. It's tough because also I'm acutely aware that by the time this podcast comes out, there may be an answer to this question, and we're going to sound like morons. So
yeah, that's all right. I
don't care. If you've listened this long, the
fact that we do this podcast should be clear enough that we do not care whether we sound like morons.
No.
Morgan Hughes, our buddy Morgan Hughes.
Really?
If we are witnessing the end of Cucho in Cowtown, I will start killing the hostages.
Wow. Man, given the current geopolitical state right now, I don't know that I want to make killing hostages jokes.
If I said
that's a little dark.
If I said that, people would shit their pants.
Yeah, I'd get fucking canceled for saying that.
But also, like, do you think there's going to be like Columbus Crew? Like, let's say Cucho's holding out for a move, or they're working on a move for him for the summer, right? And they're holding him out to get the deal done. Or whatever. Do you think there's going to be people in the media there and fans saying that, like,
this is normal?
Saying that it's perfectly normal for him and good, actually, and it's frankly offensive that you would expect otherwise for him just not to play until July?
No, but I'm certainly going to start that narrative that it's good to see that another organization has learned from FC Cincinnati that it's good, wise, and normal to hold your top-tier striker out in order to preserve his availability for his new club that he wants to go join.
Right. It's perfectly normal not to play a guy you're paying buku bucks so that he can play for another team in 4 months.
Completely normal, as expected. I would be shocked if it's that. I assume that
shocked.
I'd be shocked if it's a move, just because the timing is all wrong. And I don't think you would be saying team policy. Like, what's the team policy? You're not allowed to ask for a move after the window closes? Like,
are any Middle Eastern windows open?
I mean, sources say yes. All right, hold on here. Saudi Arabia winter window. Is there a transfer window in Saudi Arabia? It says it's only open from January 2024 to January 30th, 2024. I can't believe that.
Looks like Qatar stops January 31st.
I feel like if you have enough money that none of the rules matter in places like this. Yeah. I don't know. Is he trying to force his way to Inter Miami since they're having problems with availability and injury health, and potentially to be the savior to prop this team up so that Apple and MLS can have their favorite anointed son staying relevant through the summer?
So the funniest outcome is Miami like trades like Suarez and Jordi Alba to Columbus
for Cucho.
Yeah.
And Suarez like gets off the plane and his knee just falls off. Like it's
because now they're under contract with the league. You can trade them wherever you want. That would be a funny thing with if MLS started doing that with like it's like MLS signed a bunch of like European stars to places like LA and Miami.
Right.
And then just traded them to Kansas City.
It's like, well, read the fine print, man. You signed. You agreed. That would be very funny. I would enjoy that tremendously. Do you think it's because Cucho is being blackmailed that someone found out he drank piss and he doesn't want that to get out, so he's sitting out until the crew does something about that story?
I don't know. Wouldn't that make him more popular in Columbus?
We don't kink shame on this podcast.
Yeah, I didn't.
No. All right, well, that's Cucho Hernandez. I guess we'll stay tuned, see what that is. I'll tell you what, if it turns out that Wilfred Nancy is losing the locker room and it requires him to be fired and sent someplace else before we play them again, the sound you will hear will not be me crying.
Somebody in the Discord pointed out that the Kazakhstan window is still open.
Oh, shit.
As is Bhutan.
You know what's going on? He wants to challenge for GB's goal-scoring throne in the Kazakhstan Premier League. I don't know that GB has the goal-scoring record there, but I'm going to choose to believe it because that's very funny to me.
He wants to buy into the Nobu restaurant group, and he needs to buddy with the Kazakhstani billionaire that funds the Russian Nobu locations.
I just listened to an interview with Pat Beverly, the NBA player, talking about how he had to pay his way to freedom from Russia, that they made him pay back the entirety of his contract when he played over there and pay the GM $50,000 in cash to just talk to the owner about it. That would be really funny if Cucho ends up someplace where he ends up owing money to someone to get out. That would make me laugh a lot.
Couldn't happen to a nicer guy.
Could not. Piss drinker worldwide. Just a couple other news items around MLS. San Diego FC now has a sporting director, theoretically, a year in advance of their entry into MLS. I always get triggered when I read these stories just because it reminds me that we did not, even though we had a, we'll say, lengthy and robust run-up in terms of time and knowledge that we knew that we were entering into MLS. I guess Luke Sassano was ostensibly the GM on this club. San Diego appears to be making actual moves to get ready for becoming an MLS team. Scale of 1 to 10, how annoying is that to you? Am I alone in this regard?
I think that's like the pessimistic way of looking at it. The optimistic way of looking at it is they seem to be relying heavily on people from the same club. I think
Monaco?
I think they're already top executive or whatever is already from Monaco. And then this guy who's going to be it sounds like sporting director, is the technical director at Monaco. And I just hope it, going all in on, European experience works out as well as it did for us.
I heard a story a long time ago. I don't know how well known this is in the FC Cincinnati community, but that...
Although we picked like Pek Swol for whatever reason, and they're picking like one of the top teams in Europe, but, whatever.
I did hear tell that the FC Cincinnati GM job was offered around to American candidates, and a lot of people were like, how much time you got to build? Give us a call when the guy you're hiring doesn't work out. So I do wonder if it's harder to get top Americans to lead some of these expansion projects because there's only so many jobs in this country, and failing at an expansion team seems like a very high probability for a lot of people. Although what you have seen, though, which is very interesting, and it's probably worth talking about in the mythical MLS podcast that we're never going to start, is how a lot of expansion teams, we came out of the gate and we sucked something fierce. The trend since us has been teams coming out of the gate and doing well, and then finding that keeping success is really, really hard, because Austin FC looked like they were going to be, oh, here's another new powerhouse with new money. They've been not good since their first year. And St. Louis has been okay so far this year, but they certainly aren't what they were last year in terms of how they were playing and the results they were getting and the, mysterious balls that found their way to the feet of their strikers from opposing teams.
So I had multiple people in... I fucking hate doing like the sources thing. I hate it. Like one of my things on this podcast is like, I want anything I say to either be like sourceable or like clearly opinion.
Right.
And I'm going to step out of that rule for a second.
Hold on. This is the Grayson anonymous source segment.
But I had multiple people say to me, I think in like the 2021 range, that despite results to date, they felt like we were sitting a lot prettier than specifically Nashville for like long-term success. And obviously we haven't been long-term yet, so you can't say that's borne out. But like if you wanted to be us or Nashville today, you would clearly want to be us.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
we are very close. I'm not counting chickens this year, right? But after this season, we'll have been in the league 5 years or 6 years, and Nashville will have been in the league 5 years. And we'll have been better than Nashville 3 out of the 5 years that we overlapped.
Yeah.
Assuming that things end up how they look.
Right.
Okay.
I mean,
I'm not saying like Nashville's the benchmark or anything. This is just picking, I'm just picking an example of a team that came out of the gate better than us.
I mean, you can say that about every team right now that has.
You can say that about Minnesota. Like, we've been way better than Minnesota ever was.
So yeah, you talk about the recent expansion teams to MLS along with us. Nashville right now, 7 points, sitting in 11th place. And I know the season's young, but would you trade positions with Nashville club for club right now? I think the answer, like we just said, was no.
No.
I wouldn't trade with Austin either at this point.
Nope.
Like, Austin has been objectively not good since their first year. St. Louis has fallen back to earth significantly. They're down in 10th place. Their defense is atrocious again this year, but they're not getting miracle goalkeeping from Berkey like they got keeping him around last year. They've given up the second most goals in the Western Conference. I wouldn't trade positions with St. Louis. I wouldn't trade positions with Minnesota. Minnesota's doing better this year, but Minnesota's been god-awful the last couple of years. The only team that I would say that if you offered me a one-for-one swap that you'd at least, make me consider is LAFC. And that's because they've got the trophies involved.
So not Miami?
Boy, that's tough.
So from my perspective, I would say no to Miami.
I'd say no to Miami
because of the whole weirdness of like the MESSI thing. But I cannot guarantee you that I wouldn't feel differently if I was like literally living in Miami.
Oh yeah. Okay. So like but here's the deal. So okay, can you give me if swapping teams with them right now? Yeah, I would take Leo Messi playing for FC Cincinnati. I rooted for a team that Tom Brady came to and played for 3 years, and it was badass. It was awesome. I have a Tom Brady jersey. You can't take that away from me. With my favorite team. But like, I don't know. Objectively, other than Messi playing there, Miami hasn't accomplished a lot more than we have. They won League's Cup. I think I'd probably rather have Supporters Shield than that. I no doubt I'd rather have Supporters Shield than that.
Yep.
LAFC has trophies. I'd switch with them.
LAFC's won Supporters Shield and MLS Cup.
Right. And Atlanta has won MLS Cup, so I would switch with Atlanta. But I mean, like, when you look at it, that's our peers right now in terms of expansion teams. Like, the narrative around this club is completely flipped at this point to where I think you have to say, especially if they have another good year this year, like we think they're going to, I think that Cincinnati, objectively, has become a benchmark expansion club for MLS. That, like, this is where you want to end up. You want to end up like Cincinnati is, where within the first 6 years, 5 years in the league, you have a new facility that's your stadium. You have a training facility that is, hashtag world class. You have won silverware, and your pipeline is set up with a system that you play that is repeatable, that makes sense, with a coach and a GM that are on the same page. The way you got here, you wouldn't want your wish on your worst enemy. But it's hard to argue with the result. It's a results-oriented business, and the process may have sucked, but the outcome is great.
Well, so we still we made the playoffs way faster than Toronto. I think Toronto. I looked at this I think in 2022, and basically we were in the playoffs faster than most expansion teams, and we had way better. First 5 years than Toronto had, better first 5 years. I mean, I would argue better existence than Philly at this point. Yeah. Philly's only trophy is the COVID shield.
Yeah. And they don't make signings, so they've never made anything to look forward to.
We're probably sitting prettier than Orlando, which is another fairly recent expansion team. Although Orlando's won Open Cup, but we've been in multiple semifinals and won the Shield, and so all that is. I think there is something to be said for how FC Cincinnati got to where it did. And like, yeah, like finishing last 3 straight years sticks out in the mind and sucked. But like, would you rather finish last 3 straight years and then be like a, top 4 or 5 team in the East in perpetuity? Or at least like be one of the teams that's like consistently in the running for silverware? Or would you rather be like a 8-9 team forever, right?
Yeah.
Like you never finish last, but you never also contend for anything. But
we're the finance bureau of teams. It's, while all of our friends were doing better and having fun and going out and spending money, we were grinding, we were building.
No, we're in med school.
Now look at us.
We're doctors. The first 3 years were our residency.
Yeah. And now we're driving an Audi.
Our friends were working for banks.
Yeah.
Those 3 years. And we were like, making low salaries, working 100 hours a week.
You'll burn yourself out. We're going to be, we'll be with our doctor friends making doctor money. That's what'll happen.
So I actually thought about this today, and I think this kind of relates to what we're talking about now.
Dr. Cop money, I should say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Tom Bogert had a video today about like, big names he thinks like may come to MLS like this year or the following years. And he talked about
like Timo Werner at Red Bull and stuff like that.
Exactly. Yeah. And he talked about how like he sees benefit to MLS continually trying to attract big names to the league. And I think like he's more right than wrong for sure. But I think that also like there's, because of the salary cap, even if it grows, even if the roster mechanisms like expand, there's always going to have to be like multiple ways that things are done, because like the LAs and New Yorks and Miamis are going to be able to get big names on cheaper deals than Cincinnati, Columbus, Kansas City, etc.
Right, they're just leveraging location. So
like those teams are going to have to find value elsewhere, whether it's like lesser names that are like in their mid-20s, and so like maybe as good as like Timo Werner at 32, or homegrowns for some teams, etc. And I was thinking about how like there's an angle where FC Cincinnati is currently kind of a destination spot, but for American players.
Yeah.
Like American players in like the GAM TAM or like low level DP kind of range, or maybe like not quite at the DP range, where it's a great spot if you're Miles Robinson, Corey Baird, DeAndre Yedlin, Matt Miazga, players of that profile.
Yeah.
And like there's no guarantee that's always going to be the case, but like that's a good thing to be.
No doubt. It's a good thing
in the marketplace. Like Miami's going to be the place for like Messi's buddies and like hot young South Americans, and Southern California is going to be a hotbed for like Mexican talents and maybe other European stars who want to live in LA. And New York's going to have its thing, but like being a place where it's like really nice to be like kind of a mid to late career, successful but not Pulisic American player, that's like a market inefficiency.
I said it a couple weeks ago. Like if you had to pick a betting favorite for a team to land Christian Pulisic when he came back, when he comes back to the United States, I don't know that it's not Cincinnati. I legitimately don't. Philly doesn't pay.
We'd pay for him. Yeah.
We'd pay for him. And like you're using this time right now to establish yourself as the pipeline for top quality Americans coming back from Europe, where it's like, you know what? I played over here, but I kind of want to come home. Like, look at the players we've had come through here. We've had, Miles Robinson, the players you named already. Jeff Cameron was calling this team home as recently as a couple years ago. Like, there's a market for this. There is an opportunity for this club like this, and there's a lot of different ways to build. But I wouldn't hate it if, eventually Jedi Robinson ends up playing back here when he comes back to the United States, or, any of these guys that are overseas that are, they want to come back home, that it's they've played overseas, they've gotten that out of their system, or the players where, you make them the contract offer where it's like, you can go be a fringe player at the back end of the Bundesliga or the back end of Liga 1, or you can play for FC Cincinnati and make decent money.
You would have competition for like any of these guys, right?
But if you're a place they want to play, you get if they're familiar with your training ground, they're familiar with your stadium, they know the fans are supported, it's a good place to live, and like they've been told. That's the other thing too, is that all these guys, like, as long as you treat them right, like, Matt Miazga called and vouched for this place to DeAndre Yedlin. That's been in the stories we've already read.
Yep.
He called
Tyler
Miles
Adams
Robinson.
would be a god here.
Yeah.
Like, Tyler Adams would be like the biggest star this soccer team has ever had.
Right, and you don't think that every single person that's playing for this team right now that's a U.S. men's national team player isn't going to be like, yeah, come to Cincinnati. We're having a good thing going on right here.
Yeah, what's his face? Eric Palmer something.
Somebody. You're the U.S. men's national team guy, not me.
I'm just... I can't believe I'm blanking on his name, but Eric Palmer Brown. Like a guy, he's a good U.S. center back, been in and out of the national team, and has had, he's been starting sometimes and not starting sometimes in Europe. Seems like he would be a great player to bring back to Cincinnati.
I would love that if that was.
There's tons of guys of the kind of profile that you could see. Ending up here.
And what a turnaround from when we had to buy international spots to make room for Shemeshov Teton back in the day. Yeah. You'd love to see it.
And, I'll be honest, it wouldn't hurt to have a lot of Americans on the roster in this market.
Well, if we finally start getting some guests, it'd be nice. If we can get the team to,
I don't mean like for the podcast. I just mean for the fan base.
I'm always thinking of content creation. The content creation switch never goes to the off position. One last note on our MLS for segment 2, and then we'll get over to segment 3 and preview this weekend's game. The New England Revolution have released a new stadium rendering over on the Mystic River, right next to the Wynn Casino. Picturesque river location for a stadium. We've been down this road before with stadium porn renderings in places that seem destined to never have a stadium. My only question to you, Grayson, is if you had to pick one, are you picking the stadium by the river in Boston or outside of Boston, or are you picking the NYCFC with the Cube entrance? What's the better stadium rendering in 2024 so far?
I'm going NYCFC with the Cube.
Cube is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think anytime you can add like a geometric design to your stadium for no discernible reason.
And also, if that stadium in Boston does somehow get approved, someone needs to make sure they excavate the site before they build on top of it, because there's bodies there.
There's absolutely bodies. Yeah, no. There's a lot of things that just disappear in the greater Boston area. Do they continue the T-toss if they are playing even closer to Boston Harbor, or at some point do they become worried that they might actually start a revolution?
Man,
they're far away now.
I'd be shocked if they continued the T-toss after this season. It's so dumb.
I don't know. I think they could have a lot of fun with it. Like if this was us in Cincinnati, this is just going inside the bit with the supporters. We would have absolutely suggested, well, can we actually put tea in there and then drink tea during the match? That would be fun.
Yeah.
Again,
can we do a chicken dance?
Yeah, bad ideas abound. Let's behead a mascot before the game. That sounds like a lot of fun too.
I think we should do that.
Yeah. Oh,
let Opie behead the other team's mascot.
I was about to say, you took the words out of my mouth. This should have been in segment 1. Are we ready to start the push to make Opie the official mascot of Commonwealth United?
I'm a little offended that nobody reached out already.
Yeah. You know, the other thing too with Opie, people forget Opie was banned from TQL Stadium at the end of April during the U.S. Open Cup. We are approaching a 1-year anniversary of Opie being banned from the stadium. Is it time to ask the people to demand the return of Opie to the stadium at this point?
I do think people. I'm not going to demand that people ask Opie to be let in, but I do want people to ask themselves, what is FC Cincinnati hiding?
Yes. Why don't they want Opie in the stadium? What are they not telling you? What does Opie know that they're so afraid of?
Like, fine, don't demand change, but at least demand answers.
Yeah. Are they worried Opie will unionize people while he's there? Is that the problem?
Could be.
Could be.
You know, I've heard lots of stuff.
Yeah, I heard Opie has his card. He performs card checks. We will be launching some free Opie merch if I can convince Jonah to design it. So be on the lookout for that, where we'll pick a game, make sure everybody can wear their free Opie gear, and we can send a message to the club. I think that's really what I want to do.
We might launch other merch. Who knows?
Maybe. Who knows? We might do a lot of things. Yep. We might not. That's always a possibility.
We might put links in the show notes, but maybe not. We might start an MLS podcast. Maybe not. But you know what we are going to do, Grayson? We are going to predict this weekend's match. So stick around to segment 3. We will look at the upcoming blood feud between FC Cincinnati and our old pals, the Red Bulls of New York. So stay tuned. And we're back. Grayson, are you as excited for this epic derby as I am? I think the blood feud is where we settled on this, correct? That's the name of this derby? The name of the derby is the blood feud.
The blood feud. There's a rumor out there, Grayson. I don't know if you're in a position to confirm or deny this. There is a rumor that we may be attending both legs of the blood feud this year.
I've heard the same rumor.
I have too. I've heard the same rumor that there might be.
I've not checked it with any club-approved sources.
Neither have I. No, this is more unverified sources. Sources close to the postcast are indicating that perhaps episode 2 of Away Days may be at the blood feud leg 2, which makes winning leg 1 all the more imperative. And New York Red Bulls comes to visit us. They are in a decent run of form right now, actually, sitting 4th in the East on 11 points, just 1 point back of the beloved orange and blue. They play New York Red Bulls style, so if you're showing up this weekend at the TQL Stadium expecting to watch soccer, you may want to adjust your definition of soccer prior to walking into the stadium. How do you feel about this? What are the vibes? What's your general overall disposition as we head into this weekend?
I think you keep kind of hearing that it's like a new Red Bulls this year. I don't believe it either. But they shelled out for Forsberg. I'm, as far as looking forward to seeing, I could honestly, they always say you like to see these top players play in your league, even if for other teams. I could give a shit. No. If there's top players playing for the other team.
No, I hope they field an army. I hope they field an lineup of toddlers when they play us.
But if it means that Red Bulls are going to play more soccer, great.
Yeah.
I never really enjoy watching a game against Red Bull, so
no,
I don't.
You survive the experience watching Red Bull play soccer.
Yeah. So, maybe I'm hoping that Obi gets his start.
Yeah.
Back. And there's every week is an opportunity for the offense to figure out what it's doing.
Yeah, that's the glass half full, is that this is another chance to right the ship, as it were. before we talk about the offense, let's talk about the defense here for a second. Scale of 1 to worried. Where are you with Matt Miazga's headspace as he plays the Red Bulls, seeing what happened the last time he went up against his old team?
I'm not worried.
All right.
I've decided I'm not going to worry about Matt this year.
He seems to be doing well in terms of...
He did not get a card last game.
In terms of managing his business and managing his mentals. You have to ask, did the anger management training actually work? Did he actually attempt to work through the program as opposed to, just showing up like it was a CLE and just getting your compliance hours in?
Well, maybe, because you talked about how his play last game was on the edge, like he always is. Getting on the right side of the line repeatedly. But his play was never being on the right or wrong side of the play was never his problem. It was always being on the right or wrong side of whatever happens in the interactions between him and the referees.
Right.
And
his mouth gets him into trouble.
That seems to have not been a problem. I don't think referee assignments are out this week, so I don't have a.
There's no betting odds on how bad the officiating is going to be. Unfortunately,
yeah,
that'll drop by the time this episode airs, so that'll be fun to watch the reaction to that in real time.
We're going to be. Surely we're gonna be mad.
Yeah,
throughout the game.
That's just our resting state.
Yeah.
No reason not to run the full ones out there. I think it was nice that Nick Haglund got some run in, but this is not a game that you screw with anything. I think that you put your best back line out there.
Right. It sounds like it's so I know it was mentioned after the game, and then Noonan had mentioned it a couple of times actually in previous weeks that it sounds like Keller has been battling something that keeps him from being 90 minutes fit.
Yeah.
So, maybe that's related to why, Haglund started partially that and partially getting Nick more run to help him get 90 minutes fit. But I think we're going to see what I think is the ones on the center backs, which is Murphy, Miazga, Robinson.
Yeah. I do think that if Keller is healthy, I think it's an interesting question, and I think it might be matchup dependent.
Yeah,
between Keller and Murphy as to who starts.
Depends on what side you want Robinson on, right?
Yeah.
Which I think I think it's a really good place to be.
It's absolutely a great place to be.
If you get to a point where and I want everyone to compete the best they can, but just from a fan or team standpoint, having kind of a 4 players for 3, and it's just matchup dependent who starts.
Yeah, there's going to be plenty of minutes. There's going to be plenty of minutes for everybody, so I'm not worried. I don't think anyone's worried about that.
Yep.
What's the magic number for goals that gets the narrative at least pushed back on the offense? If they win and score 2 goals, are we on narrative watch still, or are we putting the narrative to bed?
I think 2 goals takes us from panic to, what was I before, monitoring?
Concerned.
It takes us from panic to concerned. 3 takes us from panic to monitoring.
What if none of the goals are from the strikers?
It depends. That's situational.
Okay.
Right. It depends how they're generated.
Right.
Because you'd certainly expect your strikers to be responsible for a lot of your goals, but there is a world where the offense is generating a lot of goals and the strikers are playing a role in that. It's just the guy who gets the final touch is not necessarily the striker.
Right. So
I don't think that's what their plan is. I think their plan is for Bupenza and Baird to get a lot of goals themselves. But
no, it's a fair point. I think that the underrated thing to watch out for with this offense, and Kevin brought it up on the last show, And that's this idea that I want to see a little more from Orishano and from Yedlin pushing forward and joining the attack. Yedlin joining the attack is what produced the last goal, the only goal they scored in the last game. Orishano, that still feels weird saying it that way, but I'm going to force myself to do it because it's the right way to say it. Orishano, he looks like he has the ability to be dangerous, but it just feels like he is holding back a little. I'm curious.
It feels like he hasn't gotten to that final ball yet, right? Because like
That's fair.
he looks very nice with it.
Yeah.
Repeatedly throughout the game. But like we haven't seen him like put a shot on frame, or we haven't seen him connect that final ball consistently.
So I want to see that. I am very concerned about the striker play, but I could be convinced to be less concerned about the striker play if the wingbacks start to really, really look dangerous the way Barrial and Arias did for long stretches of last year. So that's a long way of saying that I just hope we look better offensively and score more goals. The problem is with this Red Bull team, this game will have no flow to it whatsoever, and it feels like whenever you score goals against Red Bulls, it's because some nonsense and bounces happened that just happened to break your way, and that no one fell down and pretended to have a concussion to stop the play from happening. So we come to the moment of truth, predictions. I'm not the type of person that brags. I find bragging to be beneath me and beneath most people. However, I did nail the prediction in our last game, like almost down to the letter in terms of how that game went. So I believe I will defer the honors to you. How do you see this New York Red Bulls matchup going?
2-1 to the FC. Red Bulls score on a penalty. And Red Bulls score first.
I could see that. Who's the penalty? Who is at fault for the penalty? And is it a legitimate penalty?
Well, it's not a legitimate penalty.
None are.
I'm going to say Yedlin is at fault, or is called for the foul.
I feel like Miazga's the fun bet.
Miazga's the fun bet, but our center backs have been like so good.
Yeah.
Like the two penalties that have been called on us were by our
Kubo and Obi
midfielders.
Yeah. Tracking back.
I think it's going to be. Actually, I'm gonna change it. It's gonna be Murphy.
It's gonna be if in this scenario.
So here's what's gonna happen. Ordashano is gonna be up high as part of an attack. We're gonna lose the ball. Red Bull's gonna go in transition. Murphy's gonna get caught out a little bit, and he's gonna make a rash tackle that he does get all ball, but the ref still calls him for the penalty.
I think the only thing I'd add to this is that Miazga gets a yellow card for yelling at the ref too much after the penalty. That'll be his first yellow for non-contact type performance.
All right.
You know, I feel strangely optimistic about this game. I don't know why. I feel like we owe them a little bit for how that Red Bull game low-key ruined the season last year. Like, you can trace just about everything that went wrong. I know they won the next game anyway, but it was the Red Bulls and the knock-on effect from that probably cost this team MLS Cup last year. So I do think receipts are owed. I'm going to say 3-0 for the FC this week.
I would love nothing more.
I think they score 3 goals. And I think Corey Baird knocks his first one home and just pisses me off in terms of I'm cheering, but I'm also like, God damn it.
My goal scorers are Lucho and Bucha.
I would love if Pavel, used that legendary strength to force one home.
Yep.
That would be...
Yeah, he's going to shrug off Forsberg.
Yeah.
And just bang one in from like right outside the 18.
That would gruntle me greatly. We're due for a PK too. We haven't had enough of those this year. We're due for a call.
Yeah.
But PSRA, we know how that goes. So there you have it. That's 2 predictions for the good guys on that one. I guess a better podcast host would have texted Kevin to ask for his prediction. So I'm just going to pretend like I did. And wouldn't you believe it? Kevin thinks we're going to lose this game 2-0.
Damn.
What a bad fan.
What a loser.
Seriously. Ditches the podcast and also predicts a loss. I don't even know this guy anymore. Grayson, do you have anything else for the people tonight?
Nah.
Nah. Well,
just looking forward to recording all of this tomorrow night after tomorrow's news makes all of it irrelevant.
Yeah. Oh God, no, that would be great because I'm terrible at editing podcasts. All right. Well, you know how we end these. Go fuck yourself, San Diego.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Cincy Postcast, which is a production of The Post Cincy. You can check us out at thepostcincy.com for all of our written content as well as links to our social media. You can follow us on Twitter, and as well you can join us on our Discord server. You can find links to that server both in this episode description as well as on our website. That is where most of our conversations are going on. We have a lovely community there talking about FC Cincinnati, MLS, anything and everything else and everything in between. We also want to give a huge thanks to Jim Trace and the Makers for providing all of the music you've heard throughout this episode. They're an amazing local Cincinnati band. Again, more information about them is in the description of this episode. And if you enjoyed what you listened to, and you've made it to the end, so I'm going to assume you liked it, or you just can't reach your stop button, please like us, review us, subscribe to us wherever you are getting your podcasts. That is going to be really, really helpful. But more importantly, share this with a friend. A personal recommendation helps spread a podcast so much further. So please share this if you know somebody in your life who's an FC Cincinnati fan, an MLS fan, somebody that you think would enjoy this. Pass it on over. Thank you so much again for listening. It blows me away that people continue to listen to us, and thank you so much again.